I'm Sister Angel Teresa of the Eucharist. I'm a Carmelite nun in the Monastery of the Most Holy Trinity in New Caney, Texas. And New Caney's in the Diocese of Galveston, Houston. My journey to religious life started out kind of early. As a child, I was going to Catholic school, and when the sisters would be talking about vocations, I remembered one of them very early talking about orders that were dedicated to a life of prayer. And I remembered later, as we were walking past the convent to Mass, I looked at it and I thought, if I'm a nun, I want to be one that's dedicated to prayer. And not that the other sisters are not dedicated to prayer, but there was just something about that attracted me. And when I was in high school, I really didn't think about being a nun. Well, I thought about it. I didn't talk about it. That was the thing. That just wasn't the thing to do for teenagers. But when I got into college, in some way it was more present to me because I could see in what I was thinking of as a career and doing different things, I really wasn't all that satisfied with it. And I had this at the back of my mind. And when I was a sophomore, one of the most popular girls in school shocked everyone. She entered the convent. And it was the talk of the campus. And we were just quite taken aback that she had entered the convent. And then later in a vocational talk that year, I realized if I don't try, I won't be peaceful ever. So I contacted the Carmelite nuns in San Antonio, and I entered later that summer on the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And then in 1964, came here to this diocese, to our Carmel, to help out as a novice. I found when I entered Carmel, I had a lot to learn about living a life of prayer. And when we began to read St. Teresa's interior castle, and she described it as an inner castle within the soul of each person, and saying the door to this castle is prayer. And I felt like there was a whole world that I knew very little about, that I needed to learn about. And it's brought me in many ways that I wouldn't have suspected, into a deeper friendship with Christ, to trying to really live a life of prayer, and finding out that stretches me in many ways, but it also gives a peace that's beyond words. And I'm very grateful for the gift of my vocation. I would encourage a person who's doubting in their vocation, check it out very carefully and try to be attentive to God's call and to what gives them peace in following God. It's many times we've heard women come and say, you know, I always wanted to be a nun, but I never checked it out. And I find that very sad, because there's something in that person that they're wondering about and doubting about for their entire life. And I think each person needs to be very sure as they possibly can be, of their vocation and what God's calling them to. Because it's in Him that we find our peace. And the world can be all too distracting. There's just so many things, and good things, to catch our attention. But God's voice is very still, very quiet, and He only invites us. He doesn't force us. So it's up to us to be attentive and not take the easier road of just kind of pushing those thoughts under the carpet and moving on to something that might be a bit more flashy, maybe more in style. in a worldly sense. When we ask God for vocational help, He gives it. He wants each person to be where He's made them and where He's called them to be. And He gives that help. He doesn't deny it. So it's there, but it's ours only for the asking.